Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another short war video, and today it's getting absolutely crazy between the United States and Russia, and things are escalating very quickly, and starting off with our biggest news of the day, a Russian drone has invaded Lithuanian airspace this morning near the capital of Vilnius, causing Lithuania to declare an emergency, and not only has Lithuania's territory been violated, but now Estonia has announced a Russian vessel also violated its maritime borders, and has now summoned the Russian ambassador to protest. Meanwhile, the US president has announced he will no longer wait for Putin to end the Ukraine war and has given Putin a 10-day ultimatum or else, and this has caused the Russian stock market to plummet, and now Dmitry Medvedev is directly threatening the United States in response as tensions boil over. And we also have news of a possible ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia, and also news about Iran's nuclear program. But today, the news is really popping off in Ukraine heavily, and things are escalating dramatically, and it looks like the stage is being set for a very large escalation. But moving into our first post here, this one goes to War Translated, and we can see right here that LRT reports that a drone of unknown type entered Lithuanian airspace, likely from Belarus, and it was spotted near Vilnius at the altitude of around 200 meters, and this is the second such incident in July, and in the previous case, the drone was identified as a Russian Geron drone. So this is the second time it's happened in a month, which makes us less likely that it was an accident. So let's take a look at our footage here and see the drone literally flying right over near the capital of Lithuania, right near this airspace. Let's take a look. So there you see it, there's that drone flying right there over Lithuanian airspace, and once again, this is right outside the capital of Vilnius, so this is not some random airspace, this is literally right outside of Lithuania's capital, and there's another drone flying over right there that is obviously an enemy drone right in their territory. The second time it's happened this month, and that is very disturbing to see once again, because in my opinion, it looks like Russia might be probing the Lithuanian airspace defenses and seeing what the response will be to an incursion just like this one. So very disturbing footage once again, and the second time it's happened in just a month. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Anton Jeroshenko, and we also have another angle of this drone coming in and flying right over near Vilnius, Lithuania, and this photo right here, this video actually, is showing us apparently a resident right near the capital filming this from either his driveway or a sidewalk, just showing you how close this was to civilians and how dangerous this situation truly was. So let's take a look. So there it goes right there, this guy filming from his driveway. What the fuck? And you hear the guy's clearly shocked. He was not expecting to see a Russian drone flying over a NATO country like this, and nobody really was. But as you can see in this video right here, there was actually right there in the very end part of the video, you can see there's a street lamp, you can see the trees in the background, and clearly this guy's standing in a populated area. This is not some random place out in a farm field or something. This is right here on the outskirts of Vilnius. So absolutely insane to see that. This drone right here, if it's truly off course, apparently made no effort to course correct whatsoever. So not good, and there's more evidence of it flying right over and being filmed by civilians just going about their daily business. So moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Polymarket Intel, and we also see here that Darius Buta, a spokesperson for Lithuania's National Crisis Management Center, stated that he's trying to currently determine its current location of the drone and where it might have fallen. So right now, information about where the drone actually crashed is very sparse, but it sounds like from the statement here from the spokesperson from Lithuania that the drone did indeed crash somewhere outside of Vilnius, and you know, of course, we're not really sure how it ended up that way, nor how did it get there. Nobody's really sure about much of anything right now, but the one thing is clear though, the drone, a Russian drone, apparently flying through Belarusian airspace, entered into a NATO country's airspace for the second time in a month, and of course, that is an incident which can't just be ignored. So very serious once again. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Nexta, and not only is Lithuania having a problem this morning with Russia, but now Estonia is also having a problem as well, this time involving a Russian ship violating a maritime border. And we can see right here, Estonia delivers a formal protest note to Russia over a border violation, and Estonia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs summoned the Russian ambassador to express an official protest and hand over a diplomatic note, and the reason is because a Russian border patrol vessel violated Estonia's maritime border. So there is the vessel right here in this photo. Now, one thing you might be noticing here is there is a pattern developing, all these drone incursions into NATO Baltic state airspace. That's very disturbing. Also, we're seeing here multiple different vessel violations of the maritime border as well, and it does seem like this is likely intentional to send a message to the Baltic states and try to intimidate them, because I really doubt that all these different instances are simply mere coincidence. It seems like a concerted effort, at least in my opinion, and that's only the logical conclusion that we can come from out of all this information. So that is very disturbing that of course they are doing this right now, and it comes at a time where the US is currently ramping up the pressure on Vladimir Putin to end the war as well. But moving on to our next post here, this one's going to go to Null Reports, and also last night we did see that Russia launched a drone attack on Ukraine, and as as a result of that, Poland had to scramble their fighter jets to make sure that none of these drones were going to go into Polish airspace, and apparently they scrambled a bunch of F-16s and sent them up to patrol around their airspace to make sure those drones wouldn't come in. And according to the Polish Armed Forces Operational Command, air defense and radar systems were placed on high alert, and also measures were taken to ensure the security in regions bordering the threat zone. So here is the post right here from the Polish Air Force, and you can see this is rather routine these days, but once again, just proving that these countries in NATO that border up to this area where the fighting is currently taking place with Ukraine are very concerned about their airspace integrity and also their border integrity, because it looks like Russia is starting to make a concerted effort to move toward violating NATO airspace. So not good. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Disclosed TV. And after all of that news we just heard, we have a bombshell report today out of the United States that the US president has set a new deadline for Putin to 10 or 12 days from today, because the US president says we just don't see any progress being made with the Russians and the United States negotiating to end the Ukraine war. So this is a major development, and this can't be understated. This is a very welcome change right now, because previously the deadline was about 50 days for Russia, and a lot of people argued that's going to give Russia plenty of time to hurt more civilians, and why are we giving them so much leeway when they could have ended the war before? But now we can see the president is backing off and changing it to the 10 or 12 day deadline, which is a much more, I guess you could say, effective and appropriate deadline, and that gives Russia some pressure there to respond quickly or let us know exactly where they stand without giving them time to hurt more civilians. So that is a very big change right there. But learning more about that change here in our next post, this one goes to Anton Gerashenko, and we did hear also from the US president that he said that the US is going to do secondary sanctions on Russia unless we make a deal, and we might make a deal, but the president isn't very sure about that, and Putin's got to make a deal based on common sense, and you'd think he'd want to make a deal, and we'll find out. So of course, you know, it looks like Putin is not really willing to make a deal because he's not willing to talk in fairness, nor is he willing to talk to actually end the situation. So I would say the situation is pretty much wrapped up at this point. It looks like the 10 or 12 days is just one more effort to maybe see if there is some hope here, but I think the hope is pretty much faded away a long time ago when it comes to dealing with Putin. So we're seeing here the possibility of secondary sanctions, very massive sanctions on Russia, unless they make a deal by that 10-day deadline. So a very big change indeed. But as a result of that, we have seen some crazy responses coming out of Russia. Russia is not reacting good to that whatsoever. They're going off the rails right now, because we are hearing from Dmitry Medvedev, who's the lunatic that lives in Russia, that happens to be very close to Vladimir Putin. He is now publicly threatening the United States, and clicking on his post right here, this is what Medvedev said literally 10 minutes ago before I started making this video. Medvedev put out on Twitter that the US president is playing the ultimatum game with Russia, 50 days or 10, and he should remember two things. Russia isn't Israel or even Iran, and each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, and not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. They're directly threatening the United States with war, by the way, and he said don't go down a certain road of a previous politician. So Medvedev is off his rocker right now, and he is going berserk, and obviously he's very upset by this whole new deadline that's been set, and he is clearly going off the rails. And the reason why Medvedev's statement here is very crucial is because a lot of people speculate that Medvedev is basically Putin's anger translator, so the things that Putin is scared to say in the public, he sends out this crazy guy, Medvedev, to go say it instead. And in my opinion, this sounds very, very specific right here, and it sounds like something that Putin would be saying in private, but is probably scared to say in the public. So we might be hearing a major escalation from Putin's mouth directly very soon, but we are seeing that Medvedev is clearly going off the deep end. So with that, moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Nexta, and this might explain why Medvedev is so scared and freaking out right now. The Russian stock market today has tumbled by nearly 1% in total following the US president's statements. And as you can see right here, look at that. I mean, that's a huge drop right there. It's a 1%, but a 1% right now for Russia, that is something they can't afford because they're already struggling in the gutter. And this right here is going to literally the bedrock. So this is not good for the Russian economy, which is already struggling. So the bottom line is, it looks like before the secondary sanctions are even put on Russia, that they might already start having some major economic problems before that even comes around to taking place when the US president finally does apply those sanctions. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Visioner. And also, we have seen a large fire has broken out on the territory of a military unit in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. And we do see here in the photos, there is a massive fire right there on this territory. I believe this is a training center, and you can see there is a huge fire right there. It looks like on maybe the training barracks or something like that. And you can see the soldiers standing out here on the asphalt, and there is some more over there. You can see the Russian crest symbol right there on the sign, and clearly that is the area of the training facility. But moving on here to our next post, we also got a video showing this on fire as well in this one, which goes to Military News Ukraine. So let's take a look at the video and see this place on fire, because we do see here that apparently the fire might spread based on what we're seeing. And we can see right here, this is the exact same area in Nizhny Novgorod where that military facility that we just saw in the photos is on fire. And clearly it's a treed and forested area. And there is the fire right over there. So this thing has the potential to spread. And right now we're seeing that right in the middle of Nizhny Novgorod right here in this video. So also more context showing you that thing on fire. But moving on to our next post here, we've gotten some more big news that Ukraine has apparently taken another village in the Sumy region, this time in the village of Kondrativka. And according to updated information, an entire Russian company was destroyed in the encirclement set up by the Ukrainian forces in that city or that village. 90 were apparently eliminated, 5 were wounded, and 5 seriously wounded. And we do have a video here showing the Ukrainian flag being raised over this area in Sumy as the Russians are on their back channel saying that the situation is getting dire for their forces in this region. So let's take a look. So there you can see it. There's the Ukrainian flag right there on the side of that radio post. We're going to look at it one more time. There it is right there. And this is in the Sumy region. Of course, where the Russians are having a little bit of difficulty right now and getting pushed back by the Ukrainians, as we can see that the village has been retaken by the Ukrainian forces. So very good news to see on that front, and also more evidence the Russians are not winning on the battlefield either. Also, while they're struggling economically and also struggling with the new U.S. ultimatum that has been thrown their direction. So not a good day for Russia. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Clash Report. And also, it's an even worse day for Russia because today we have seen a massive cyber attack has paralyzed Russia's biggest airline, Aeroflot. All systems are down, the airports are in chaos, and the staff can't even refuel the planes. And there's roughly 7,000 servers destroyed and 20 terabytes of data stolen, and the hackers say they'll start leaking the data soon, and no group has claimed responsibility yet, but some suspect Ukrainian-linked hackers. And I would tend to believe that's probably a very likely answer, but this is a major cyber attack. Like, this is a huge win for whichever party carried this out and actually pulled this off. This took down Aeroflot, which is literally Russia's national airline, which is massive in Russia. So this is a big one. But let's take a look at the video here at the airports and show you the chaos that's ensuing as a result of this major hack. I mean, look at that. That airport is absolutely packed right there. People packed on the escalators, packed everywhere. Look, there's people like literally sleeping on the elevators. That's crazy right there. And this is the airports pretty much everywhere around Russia right now because of that major hack that we saw there on Aeroflot. So a big, big loss for the Russians and something they really are going to have a hard time recovering from. And moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Military News Ukraine. And we're getting word that the security experts citing information about the Russian reports on Aeroflot's hacking, we've seen here that apparently it will take 6 months to restore the Russian airline Aeroflot after a large-scale hacker attack, and that is 6 months right now. The losses for the company are unreal as a result of this hack, and 6 months of downtime. I'm not sure how Aeroflot's really going to handle this. They might find a workaround, or they might not be able to find a workaround. Right now, it's not very clear, but that is a humongous issue for one of the largest airlines in Russia. So like I said, it's a horrific day for Russia today. It's really, honestly, one of their worst days they've had in a long time. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Secretary Marco Rubio, and it's time to move on to our Thailand-Cambodia news for a second, because right now we're getting some big developments out of that conflict as well, because we're hearing from the Secretary of State Marco that the United States applauds a ceasefire declaration between Cambodia and Thailand that was announced today in Kuala Lumpur, and Marco says he remains committed to ending the conflict along with POTUS. So we are hearing apparently an immediate ceasefire has been agreed to by both sides, but this is not exactly as good as it looks, because we're about to learn in our next post here that things are not on the up and up when it comes to the reality of the situation, even though a ceasefire has technically been agreed to, at least according to the United States. So moving into our next post here, this one goes to Max25, and we can see right here a statement from the United States President announcing the ceasefire and also explaining exactly what this is going to mean. So let's take a look. And the President says, I just spoke to the acting Prime Minister of Thailand and the Prime Minister of Cambodia, and I'm pleased to announce that after the involvement of, and he also mentions his own name, his own post, which is kind of strange, but he said both countries have reached a ceasefire and peace between Thailand and Cambodia, and congratulations to all, and by ending this war, we have saved thousands of lives, and I've instructed my trade team to restart negotiations on trade, and I have now ended many wars in just 6 months. I am proud to be the president of peace. So now the war's not really ended just yet. I want to make that clear. There's still fighting going on, and I'm about to get into that in just a second to show you the news on that front. So he's really putting all of his eggs in one basket here. Hopefully he turns out to be right, or otherwise we're really going to look kind of a little bit silly announcing that too early. But that is the post from the U.S. president. But moving on to our next post post here. This one goes to Fintech's News, and we've also heard that apparently there's just about 2 hours left before the midnight ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand actually takes effect. So we do have a little bit of runway left to see here exactly if the fighting is going to ramp down or ramp up and see exactly where this is going to go, but we're already seeing right now that there's some bad indications this might not be actually taking effect the way we hope it will be. And moving into our next post here, this one goes to Conflict Radar, is we've heard that heavy artillery exchanges between Thailand and Cambodia continue in the Prasat Takwai direction with less than an hour until the ceasefire actually begins. So this was posted about an hour ago, so technically right now I believe the ceasefire should be in effect, and that was posted about an hour ago. So right now, by the time this video is published, the ceasefire should be in effect, so we should see if this thing's going to hold up or not by the time this video is out. So that will be interesting to see. But moving on to our next post here, this one also goes to Conflict Radar, and we also saw a Thai F-16 attacking a Cambodian military base as well, right here on camera. So let's take a look at the footage and see the F-16 launching an aerial attack on Cambodia. Alright, so right here you can see this is the Cambodian side, and in just a second you're about to see a very large explosion right there in front of the camera. And there it goes. It just hit some building right out here in the distance on the Cambodian side, and that was a Thai F-16 that carried us out. Sadly, I do not have a geolocation on the building, so I can't tell you what that was, but clearly it must have been strategic for the Thai to actually hit it with an F-16 aerial bombardment. So there you see it right there on camera. So clearly some heavy fighting going on right before the ceasefire goes into effect. But moving into our last post here, this one goes to World Source News 24/7, and we've also gotten some big news about the Iranians because they are apparently acting up very badly in the background. And we're just now getting word about it because we are hearing from the US president that Iran has been sending out nasty signals in the background, and if Iran starts nuclear again, we'll wipe it out fast, meaning the US is going to go in and strike Iran again. So this right here is a bad sign that the US might have to go back into Iran very soon with the B-2 bombers and strike the Iranian nuclear program yet again, and I guess this time, instead of calling it the Midnight Hammer, we'll call it the Daytime Slammer. So this time we might be hitting them again, and we might be hitting them again very, very soon by the sounds of the nasty signals. And we're not really told what nasty signals means, but we can only assume that probably means that Iran is threatening to restart their nuclear program, so not a good sign. But with that, folks, that is actually our last post of the video. So before you leave, make sure you smack the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well if you already haven't for more Daily War updates just like this one. And also, if you watched the video to this point, go down to the comments below and type LSA to let us know you watched the video to this point. And of course, we appreciate all the kind comments as always in that comment section, and we do read them all the time. And also, I try to heart as many as I can to let y'all know I'm reading them. And also, by the way, if you want to support the channel financially, you can go down to our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership, and it can be as little as $5 a month. Any amount helps the channel tremendously, and we appreciate every single one of our Patreon supporters very much. But of course, be sure to join us again tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the rest of the news throughout today and tomorrow on the stream tomorrow night, and we will, of course, be there to cover it all at that time. But once again, thank you all for watching, and bye-bye for now.